No balls! No count! Goddamn. Hello.
So everybody, it's Amon here. Welcome back to another one of my videos. In today's video, one of Amon's thoughts again. Today's video, you see by the title, I'm obviously going to be talking about the 4 factions I would love to see in For Honor. Here's 4 great interesting factions that could work greatly within For Honor. I can't wait to see how possibly that could come together in possibility with how this verse puts in different factions, as obviously we only have 4 factions right now: the Great A Knight Crusaders, the Brawlic Vikings, the Proficient Samurai, and their dynamic Wulin. But in today's video, obviously again, to reiterate, I'm talking about 4 factions that work greatly. These 4 factions is number 1, Aztec Spanish faction. Second, a Mongolian faction that even could be integrated within the Wulan and make 2 cross factions. 3, a Zulu / African / Egyptian, even Muslim faction. And then 4, a Greek / Roman faction. I'm going to talk more in depth with how I feel about all of them, the mechanics, the characters. I don't have 4 characters for all of them. If you guys want that, that's fine. I don't want to go out the extra work. I just want to talk about the factions. Not to say a matter for case how the characters would be like implemented into it, and it's kind of self-explanatory what other people talking about these factions possibly being in here, because all the factions I talk about in this have been talked about except for a big Mongolian faction, because we have kind of Mongolians being intercepted into the Chinese and possibly even with the samurai, depending on the lore compacts together. So I wonder how that really in-depthly will form depending on the case. Man, let's go and get into it. So obviously the first faction, the Aztecs Spanish faction. I love to see Aztecs. Aztecs have ferocity, they're brutal, they're cool, they have great A weapons. They would be cool integration within For Honor for that kind of how the characters are like / how they were actually like in history. I think their concept would be cool, and I'm thinking that possibly integrating Spanish within them, having their ancestors to greater Spanish tribes / warriors later to come would be interesting, and possibly with the Spanish you bring bigger modern day into For Honor. And I know this might be controversial, but I feel like if you wanted to, you could give one of them a feat where they actually have a gun. A gun that obviously only has 1 bullet for the straight of the game, because we have bombs, catapults, big plunger of gunpowder. Eventually, guns are going to have to be put into this. We're getting more into the modern century of this game, and the Wulan and a little bit of the Knights are crossing more into modern base faction, into a case of them being able into their own society realistically to build up weaponry and machines to make that type of gunpowder to bring in guns in this case, because by the actual drawback in the case for everything shown within the Wulan, they are all easily classified in the great 16th modern Ming dynasty, or Ming dynasty, if I'm even saying it right, because their modernity is bigly overformed within the case for how goddamn the flow of Tiandi. Sheesh! But besides that, this man is out here flowing like Bruce Lee, goddamn. Flow like Muhammad Ali. That killed me right there. The fake mix up. But not getting distracted by the video. It would be cool to see that possibility. Again, I know it might be controversial, but everything has been shown by the modernity, again, with the Wulan being a High Wing dynasty within the 16th century, and everything that puts them in that circle of being high up fighters within machinery, technology. Then the Knights growing more embedded into the case of earlier centuries, being near 17, correct me if I'm wrong, arguably, by where they're formulating to. That would build them up to at least have guns by in the place they matter for where they would grow up having these guns, and then formulating into different stuff from being knights, because at that point it takes away the entire segment of being a fantasy medieval game. but at the same time, arguably this game has disconstructed some accuracy of history by putting in characters from the past, ancestors doing other stuff that's arguably a little bit weird forming because for how the game is built up with these characters. But I think it will be fine to put in the Aztecs or Spanish faction, even just having Aztec and Spanish Grade A warriors. You could have like warriors, you could have brawlers, great heavy clubs, swords, you got beastful warriors. The lore could be interesting, having the Aztecs come in for the hunger of battle. I don't see them partnering with anybody. They just come in their own fruition, but maybe they come in because of strike from Warmonger, trying to intercede more conflict, like a Apollyon dragged into Wulin and other hospital warriors coming on to this big three-way continent within the Knights, the Vikings, the Samurai, and then invested with the Wulin. It's a matter of time before some characters of South America come in. You know what I'm saying? But to go on to the next faction, the Mongolian faction. With the Mongolian faction, it's obviously going to be Genghis Khan like era of Mongolians, but also in the form for the century aligned with the Wulin. You could possibly put Zhang Hu in his faction, take him out from the Wulin, but he resonates good with the Wulin, even though having some disdain to Mongolians. So I don't think that's bad. And if you want, you could just put Mongolians into the Wulin, which is a high probability with a kid Zhang Hu, and just most likely have the Wulin be more intricate into Asians factions of different warriors and stuff possibility. But I don't know if that's the case. With the Mongolians, they could have a bunch of different Namastin case weapons. They could do a bunch of different things. You got foretelling the Genghis Khan, had different things that come from the Mongolian Empire and bigger things that formulate from it. Be enemies fighting on the side of Horkos maybe, and fighting over at two factions that natural history have a great deal of argumentative rivalry with and partnership with, as I go into that conflict with the Japanese samurai and the Chinese before. And with this case, with Feather and Best, the will of both samurai and the Wulin to keep fighting, as some cases when they encounter the lore, they kind of been stepped on in between this crossfire different stuff because they don't want to be leaving another home to be broken down, like in the case for Japan, or having China or just the Wulin and the samurai having discourse. So this is the greatest team up probability to have peace and try to make the best means with this, and it will further strengthen the samurai and the Wulin's partnership to overstep the Mongolians coming over. And this is ironic since the attack on the wall of China with the Wulin's breach match, which is pretty cool. You could actually have that conflict or say a battle happen within this case of the matter, which will be very interesting to see how that stuff fully formates with everything that's happening here. But besides that, the Mongolian faction will be interesting to be in here by case of lore, fighting, other stuff. You can have some Ghost of Tsushima shit happening, and it would just be cool to see how that company's together within the bigger things of crime and conflict that is formed within this Verse and what's happening, which within the case of it already being a verse. But I'm just saying that with the Verse, right, you already have something happening within this. So within the Verse of that possibility, that's what could happen. It's not like it's a single state difference for what's happening with the characters and etc. But going on to the African faction. The African faction is going to be the most intricate faction to most people. Obviously with the African faction, we're heading all the way for Africa, the Great Rhino continent. With the African faction is going to hell warriors of Zulu descent. You have multiple different intricate capabilities with the Zulu. Obviously, have to buff with them with armor and not having them wooden and more tribal-like. There's a discussion that could be made with the Zulu faction if they could be white or not. They definitely could, having warriors integrated within them and having more white complexion, especially with Egyptian, because there are white Egyptians, but Egyptians obviously are black from being in a place that is in Africa, being a black country. And obviously with having Muslims sometimes are white, and Muslims as religion and black Muslims in the case of culture, you could have it in that place. But definitely should respect that these are African factions, should default be reigned as black in my opinion. And some people might be acting stupid saying that it's racist to have them as white, or saying that it's racist to even have them with black faction when these are black mainline faction. That's like saying that it's racist to have black or whites with Wulin or the samurai when they're an Asian faction. Of course, since they're hailing from Japan with the samurai, and obviously being Chinese, they're Asian. These are African warriors, so it should be in that respect, obviously. So the same with the case with the Aztecs, being Mexican, Spanish. Within this case, obviously, Aztecs did not speak Spanish, from recalling what we know, maybe more ingrained into the case of culture. Maybe some Aztec descent did, especially in Aztec regions of Mexico and South Africa. But I'm just saying, in the case involving how these characters are like, they should respect the fact that they are this place of culture. And I'm talking about with Aztecs in South America and with South Africa, they should hold up this place, especially being Nigerian, different African warriors in general, and Muslim immigration within culture within Africa, because Muslims hail from Islam. You have Arabic descent, Arabian extent, and obviously an Arabic coming with the Egyptians and actual Egyptian language and how they spoke could be taken in multiple different accounts. It does not matter. It is a fictional game. The characters can be whatever skin color, but I feel like to respect these characters, we have characters with certain looks to represent this and this. They should hail with the original skin color that they're abided by, and that should be made absolutely clear and fulfilled. We say the matter for what they should represent and how they should act, and etc. Again, when it comes down to the Aztecs, they're in that very place of culture, and then with immigration, integration from Muslims within Africa, that should be made as plays point in case of how it's like with the characters. Again, to rescind my statement, it doesn't really matter. It's just about representing the adaptation of these characters and what they are placed within their game, which in this case is a game with transversal anatomic cultural references, a bunch of different case of characters, and as a game that's pitting multiple different factions and ties of history and war together. It's a game that's supposed to be trying to represent these other case of factions, at least in my opinion. So again, within the places imposed and within the case of what these characters are like, potent within representation and imposing, it should be in this flaky state of feel involving the case of the characters and what they represent. No dramatics, I'm just saying the place for how you enforce these characters in, they should represent the place of where the characters are from respectfully. So with that being said, when they're put in, have them as default black, but you can definitely arguably change them from the common culture and different people integrated in Africa at the time. Because it doesn't mean there weren't white people in Africa or there isn't people of white descent, but they are Africans. Niggas, no racial, and I'm black. I can say it. Like, the fuck? Like, it's Africans. Are you gonna say that because there's some white people in Asia that it isn't an Asian faction when it comes down to the Wu Lin? These are Chinese Kung Fu Great Wing Dynasty warriors, my nigga. Like, come on now. Like, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear it. And going to Africa would be cool. Be in Egypt with pyramids and shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it would just be fire. So, that's why I feel like factions work. You speak Arabic, for African languages, be cool to have and say, man, for how the characters are like. It'll be dope. It'll be cool to see, man. That's it for the African faction. Going on to the final faction, the Greek/Roman faction. The Greek-Roman faction is going to be very cool to me, especially for how the characters are like within the form of the knights. You could arguably integrate all these different Greek type of Roman characters within the knights, which would be fine, especially since handling with their ancestors, you already brought characters of Greece foundation from the past into this. So with that being said, it wouldn't be that hard, but people definitely would like to have a Greek-based faction, especially including with them partnering with the characters of the knights, with the knights in general in the place. Also, to talk about the lore with Egyptians and there was the African faction, especially me being black, I love to have them, but it's not just in bias. African warriors are cool. Most people would say that. Them in the lore, they can come from many different reasons. Most African warriors will think of them partnered with the knights, especially how Egyptians had a great civil grade A bond with Romans for a general case of half of the history, and their partnership growed both of them as an empire and foundation of people very progressively. If I could edit a map of the empire reign of Egypt and Rome, and there's Rome embarking within its plane and empire, sheesh, my nigga. The fertility that they brought and they grow, sheesh, man. But they also could easily just come because of Horkos immediately, because that's literally the entire brothel of why a lot of characters come in, or at least there's discourse putting him in that place. So with that being said, that's possibility for why that would even happen in general, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you can have easy debate for if they would come for that reason, for whatever case may be as well. When it comes down to the Greece, partnering with more Romans calling them backup, simple as that. Because again, the Romans held off in Ashveld, but just a little bit farther off from where they generally would be off and based and stuff. So with the Greeks involving Romans, Spartans, possibly other great Greek warriors, in this case of time Athenians, Thracians, gladiators, where the case may be, will be a cool addition overall in the place for how they're like within the Greek pantheon of different people. Not like Greek pantheons like Greek mythology, but the entire formation of the characters and how they're imposed within the entire class of the characters. I don't know if that's even the word class. I don't know if I'm gonna edit that out, but if that's not even a word, the engravement of the characters and what begs them to the case of height to partner up with the knights within the same matter for the lore and what they bring, because it would be definitely cool to see Spartans having them actually armor if you want the whole 300 naked, because obviously 300 is based off of a book and made into a film adaptation, the memes, and then putting them together within this. And obviously have Centurion doing a Roman kick and shit, and other characters are formed within the characters involving Spartans, makes it come with Greeks, other characters, bigger things that account for the culture within the case for Greeks, etc. and all that. You can make a lot of different cool stuff with that, and I think there would be a cool addition all around. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Tell me what 4 factions you'd like to see in this. There's a bunch of other more factions I would love to see. These are my top 4 main factions I would love to see. I would see a Rajput faction, other Green Case State factions, Turkish faction, where the place in matter you want, even Koreans, because some people were upset with the Woolen coming in, they wanted Koreans. But I think within the place for how these characters are, they are good suitable advancements, they matter for gameplay, place of lore, and what can formulate Greeks into their own big faction overall, because we already have 2 Roman characters. Put them in: Gladiator, Roman Centurion, Legionary, Gladiators, Spartan, Athenian, a giant Athenian, other roles in case they matter for former Spartan and warriors, or even in case of big ancestors, they matter for ancient Greece, and etc. Just make whatever, like it can just form and big out in the case of form of how the Greeks were like this, because it can big them up into their own place of a faction and bigger up, say matter for the knights and place and form how they're like, especially with Griffin already going to different cases of Greece and getting more Greek armor and looking more fast stable of Greece and faction. So it'll be interesting to see how that would be like within the case of the culture and reference as well. But like I said, hope you guys have enjoyed. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace out, army. Love y'all.